Where should your toes point when you're riding? That's a common question that I'm asked. And the one thing that I like to focus on whenever I'm asked questions like that is that everybody's body is unique. So I have Jade here with me again, and our two bodies are different. We have different leg lengths, different hip widths. And so what I want to demonstrate here when I'm talking about the seat is functionality over a look. So whenever we're moving body pieces in places, we want to make sure that we are not moving a body part around to achieve a desired look, as opposed to a functionality within the entire system of the body. So it's important to remember that if you try to force your leg into a position that your hip cannot accommodate, then you lose functionality and the ability to flow with the movement. That being said, I want to show you why having your toes forward is the desired thing to do while riding and why it's part of the classical seat teaching. So if you're riding from center, you have the horse underneath you. So put our feet hip width apart, and you get like a nice bend in your toe. So the old adage of having the rider's alignment have a straight line from from head, shoulder, hip, and heel is because, we'll turn you to the side here, Jade, is because it keeps your center of gravity low. So put a little bit more bend in your knee like you're riding. So we have a straight line from ear, shoulder, elbow, hip, and heel. So if I try to topple Jade over, she's pretty stable. Now go ahead and stick your butt back. See how she lost stability? So then go ahead and stick your head forward. We lose stability again, right? So go back to that alignment. Now you're much more stable. So she's got a nice center of gravity. We want to have nice mobility in the hip, knee, and ankle. So, say I disrupt her, a little spook happens, a little this happens, she's very stable. So that's the purpose of that alignment. So you can turn the other way. So where should your toes point? Your toes should point wherever your hip places your toe. And what I mean by that is if you're riding with your hips over the horse, you have your right hip and your left hip over the horse's body. Your pelvis is in a neutral alignment, meaning you're not rotated like the duck butt and you're not old cowboy on the range, but you're nice and neutral where your back is in a position now to absorb the motion of the horse. Now we have a hip, we have a femur, we have our knee, and we have our ankle, and we have our toe, and they're working in conjunction with each other. So they're basically an extension out of the center, and they're working all as part of an overall system, okay? So let's say that you go to turn your toe out to use your right leg, which is a very common thing to do. I'm going to use my right leg, and I do it by turning my toe out and bringing my heel up. Now, what does that do to your hip angle? It brings it in and up, right? So it's made my hips unlevel. It's scrunched the distance between my right rib cage and my right hip. It's made my head crooked, so now your ear is high on this side. It's made the whole center unlevel. Now let's turn both our toes out and see what happens there. So my seat bones have now been brought together. They're kind of pinched in the back. My hip angle is really closed. And so if I have to absorb the shock of movement, I can't, right? So what I'm going to end up doing is bouncing up and down in the saddle, and so that's going to cause me to want to lean back to compensate for that so that I don't get thrown off board. But now I'm less able to absorb forward motion, and I'm actually sending the motion sideways, aren't I? Because the channels are blocked this way, and this is really hurting my hips, so I got to stop. So now we'll do the opposite. What happens if you bring your knees in? Let's say you go to a dressage instructor, and the dressage instructor, say you start out like this. So you've been riding colts forever and you're getting bow-legged and all that. So you go to a dressage instructor and they forcibly, don't change your hip, rotate your toes forward. Now what if we got the opposite problem? So we're still very closed off in the hip angle. My two seat bones have actually spread apart and everything has come forward in the front. And now I'm unable to allow energy to pass through me. And so what I have is a horse who's very blocked energetically and a horse that I have to keep making go forward because I'm blocking it with every stride. So what we want to get is not a leg positioning necessarily, but a hip opening. So when we open center, it allows for the knees and the toes to then become parallel to the horse. So this is a process of functionality, not of making a leg shape, right? Is when we open the hips, we allow the legs to fall on either side of the horse, and now they're in a position to be functional. But the thing to remember is we don't want the leg in the center and the hand to be functioning in opposition to each other. So the leg is part of the center. So if I ask the horse to go forward, the leg and the hips go together, right? I don't want to make the horse go forward and not come forward with them, right? So, and then same for turning, same for lateral movements, all that stuff is the center makes the leg, and then the leg works in conjunction with the center.